Being locked up for 312 months, which is roughly 26 years, of my life. The things that we take for granted in our youth, you realize those things, those mundane things, they very important. I ain't got to worry about nobody telling me when I can look at TV, when I can take a shower, bathe myself, when I can eat.
And now that Calvin Bright is a free man, he gets to control his future. No one else.
I can take off and go anywhere that I want to go. You know what I'm saying? I like dressing. I like, I like food.
Calvin was convicted of shooting and killing Tammy Paye and William Ramsey in 1994. Years after his conviction, the prosecution disclosed new evidence. It was a letter from one officer to another naming someone who went by the name Catman as a possible suspect. David Benowitz says had Bright's attorney during the initial trial known about the letter, it would have changed everything.
We hear almost every day about cases around the country where people have been wrongfully convicted of crimes they didn't commit, and evidence, years later comes out that shows that the person didn't commit the crime.
The new evidence helped Bright's legal team negotiate a deal for the 47-year-old's release, but it came with conditions. Bright's sentence would be changed to time served. He's still considered legally responsible for the crimes, although he's maintained his innocence from the very beginning. He also waived his right to go back and appeal his guilty conviction, and he's agreed to 5 years on probation, among other conditions.
When the deal came and it seemed like something that was would allow you to move on, that you took advantage of this opportunity because you were just ready to live your life and be out of jail, is that right?
Yes, because don't get me wrong, I contemplated, I weighed the pros and the cons of the deal, you know what I'm saying, okay, because I think that ultimately in the end, if I would have fought ultimately in the end, I went all the way around the board. I just felt that way, you know what I'm saying? Because for one, I'm innocent. We finally had, evidence, on our side.
But for Bright now, his focus is on reconnecting with his family, finishing his degree, and getting involved in investigative work that might protect other people being convicted of crimes they say they didn't do. And when we asked about the families of the two victims, he had this to say.
All I can say is that I'm sorry for what happened, you know what I'm saying? I'm sorry that they had to experience grief. My sincerest, sympathy goes out to the victim's family, and I wish them all the best. And if there's anything that I can, help them with, you know what I'm saying, to try to, dissipate their grief, and, they can reach out to me.